Who's your emergency contact? Who should be notified in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I'm in Atwater. And over again, I try to share with you guys about the politics in prison. Each penitentiary you go to, the politics varies a little bit on who you can socialize with, what your code of conduct is. But for the most part, everything stays the same. Part of our politics in prison is that we don't help the COs do anything that has to do with security. Like, we don't fix sliding doors that jam. We don't fix fences that are broken. Our mentality is, why are you helping the guards fix their security mechanism, the security mechanism that's keeping all of us in prison? But some people refuse to understand that. In every penitentiary, you have jobs. You work in CMS or facilities. That means you might go fix the air conditioning or the heat, or you might come and fix somebody's toilet or sink. Those are all for us. When you fix the air in a unit, that benefits us. When you fix the heat in a unit, that benefits us. If my toilet is broken or my sink is broken, all those things are for us. But if they got a sliding door at the gate that's broken, you're not supposed to be over there fixing that shit. If they got a hole in the fence because somebody's peeling it and making ice picks out of it, you don't go over there and fix it. You don't go there and tell the people there's a hole in the fence. These are these things that, for me, is common sense. Well, in Atwater, they're returning 1A. You have the units are 1A, 1B, 1A, 2B, 2A, so on and so forth, 6 buildings with 2 sides to each of them. Well, in 1B, they had converted that into an overflow for the penitentiary. So there's people, in the back between 1B and the lieutenant's office, they're making the shoe, meaning they're putting up rec cages and stuff for the shoe. They're building a wall between the unit so that when we're walking a child, we can't see over it. Well, prior to that, they had a big ass hole in the fence on yard 1. Now, every yard, there's a sign. It says 240 yards, 300 yards, 120 yards. These signs are put up there to show the distance between that and the gun tower. So when the gun tower pulls out his gun and you're on yard 1, he can see from the gun tower to yard 1 to the fence of yard 1 is 220 something yards. So he knows where to adjust his scope when he's trying to shoot you. Now, there is one white boy. He had long hair, older dude or whatever. For the most part, he stayed out of trouble. But he worked at CMS, and he was like the number 1. The number 1 meaning he gets grade 1. So he's the highest paid inmate worker in that department. And he goes around with the COs to fix everything that needs to be fixed. The plumbing, the lights, whatever. So when they had a hole in the fence, he went over there with the CMS COs and fixed the wire and fixed the fence. Well, my homeboy at the time, his name is Joe Wells, Country. He had the yard for the independent white boys. He went and told the guy, say, listen, man, we don't do that. There's things that you can do that, has to do with your job, but we don't fix any security stuff. That means fence, gates, cameras, whatever shit that is used to hold us in here that is not benefiting the inmates, we don't touch it. And it's not a written down code or anything, but it's just a convict code. It's an understanding. Man, don't help these motherfucking police lock us in. So they warned him. And, by all account, he agreed that, yeah, you're right. I'm good with that. Well, now we fast forward, they start building cages between 1B and the lieutenants. They're put, like people that's in Atwater with me, they can tell you, they're putting up a wall because between each building there's a gap and it's just a fence. You can look through and it's just rocks or grass or shrubs or whatever. Well, they came through there, they dug it out, they cleaned it out, laid cement on it and everything, and then they started putting the walls up. So we on the compound, walking the chow, can't see through there. After they put the wall up, they're gonna put rec cages. And rec cages is what it is. It's a rec cage. It's maybe 10 by 10 feet. That's what they call considered rec. When you're locked down in the shoe, they pull you out for an hour at a time, 3 to 4 times a week, and throw you in this fucking rec cage and call it rec. So there's a bunch of us in rec cages like we're chickens, like in chicken coops. I've been in the shoe plenty of time. I've been locked down plenty of time. And let me tell you, it's not rec. Outside of getting fresh air, it's not rec. Per man and square foot, you have more room in your cell. You have 2 people in a cell, and your cell is an 8 by 12. Well, in the rec cage, they might put 6 people in there by a 10 by 10. So actually, when you go out to rec, you have less space. But, our rec is our social hour. That's where we go out, catch the news from the yard, or see people that we don't get to see because we're stuck in our cell 24/7 for the most part. They call it 23-1, but that's bullshit. I've been in my cell weeks and weeks at a time without getting wrecked because there's always gotten excuses why we're not getting wrecked for that day. So they start building this this new shoe. 1B is the overflow for the shoe. And they're building the cement wall, the brick walls over it. It was an understanding on the compound that nobody let their people go and participate in that work crew. No Asian, no Islanders, no natives worked on that crew. No white boys worked on that crew. No paisas, no Sereños worked on that crew. Nobody worked on that crew except for the Muslims. I've already made a few videos on how the Muslim cars is in the federal penitentiary. And this episode is not about them. We don't want to continue on. I don't want to say bashing them, but even highlighting them, because everybody in the federal penitentiary already understand what the Sunni Muslims has become in there. They become a haven for busters. They become a haven for rats, for child molesters, and for everything else under the sun. And like I've repeated before, it's disappointing because I know true believers. I have good friends that were Muslims and that don't really condone that stuff, but they're bound by Allah's law. They've taken, their oath. They swore their allegiance to Allah and they're abiding by the rules. So they really don't dictate anything that goes on anymore as far as individuals converting, because only Allah knows what's in their heart and they let Allah judge them. But from my experience and the experience of other individuals that's in the penitentiary with us, we know that the Muslim car has become a haven for these busters who's hiding. But that's not the story that I'm sharing with you today. The story I'm sharing with you today is how the rest of us still push the line on convict time. We still push the line on what is acceptable to us. Because, at the end of the day, all of us, we're not the one that's holding each other in prison. But our mentality is fucked up and we're always at each other's throat. and some of the politics that we push and some of the politics that we implement, some of them are probably not cool, but they're in place to keep everybody in line, to keep peace to the best of our ability. So the white boy in particular that I'm speaking on today, he went over there and worked on the crew. After the homie country told him, this is not the kind of job that we do. And they told him again, hey, don't go work over there. But, you know, him being the head guy in his little crew in CMS, being grade 1, he didn't want to get fired or whatever. I don't know what the issue was with him and the COs or whatever, but he knows better. At the end of the day, who am I going to funk with? I'd rather funk with the CO than with the inmates, because the inmates are my brothers in the struggle. And it's sad that a lot of us don't realize that. But to me, I'm going to beef with the administration. I'm going to beef with the staff. I'm going to beef with the CO before I beef with one of these other dudes in there with me. But if one of these other dudes jump out there, I'm going to deal with them. But at the same time, I understand that they're not the one holding the key. They're not the one that's in the tower with the gun ready to shoot me. They're not the one in there with the control, pushing the button to open it or close the gate, locking me in my cell. So for me to get into it with an inmate, you have to really jump out there. Now, I'm on the yard at my poker table, kicking it, playing poker. And right next to me is 2 other tables, because we got 3 tables on my side and 3 tables on the ones towards the west side. Well, I already know something's going to happen, but I don't know where or when it's going to happen. You know, they've come and told me, hey, man, this white boy ain't listening. We already warned him 3 times about doing this kind of job or not. Well, I emphasize again, even if you don't agree with some of the politics that are implemented on the yard that you're on, it's best to abide them. Unless something is just outlandish, then you stand up and buck and stand up for it. But for the most part, they keep the peace. And for the most part, we all have, I don't want to say an image to project or to portray, but if we interact in commerce, if we're hustling and we're dealing, then we need to have other cars, other people understand that, and we're up of standards. We don't allow child molesters in our car. We don't allow rats in our car. We don't allow sex offenders in our car. When one of my people conduct business with you, if they shake your hand, then that business is going to be upheld. And if not, we're going to take the responsibility on ourselves to crack his head. That's the only, for me to do business with people on the yard, these other cars have to understand that these are my standards and that I live by them and that I'm willing to enforce them. And it's the same thing for every other group. When somebody owes a debt, they have to pay it. And if they don't pay it, they're going to get chopped up. And that's the standards. We've done that through the course of my bid. I've seen it by other cars so many times because we're a reflection of each other. If I'm hanging out with you and I'm a freaking douchebag, I go around lying, stealing, and all the other crudball shit. You have people that knows you, that associates with you, they're going to see like, damn, why are you hanging with Mesa? He's a piece of shit. And if you're hanging with a piece of shit, you can say that you're a good person and all this, all that, what? They're automatically going to associate with that piece of shit because the old saying goes, bird of a feather flock together. If I'm not a piece of shit, why the hell would I want a piece of shit around me? If I'm a person of certain standards, if I conduct myself a certain way, then to the best of my ability, I want to associate with myself, that I want to associate with people of the same mentality. So this dude, like I said, they warned him a few times. And one day, just the next day after they warned him that he didn't listen for the third time, or however many times they warned him, he's by my poker table. He's talking to a couple white boys. Like, it always baffles me that the victim never know it's coming. Everybody on the compound knows you're about to get your head cracked, but you. But you should know, because you know what you've done and haven't done. You know what your cases are. You know your situation. So you know that you've been doing shit that was against the politics or against the rules, or you've been warned. Whatever it is, you know what you've done. But over and over again, you feel that you're above the politics. You feel like you're above the rules. The rules don't apply to you. And over again, you get straightened out. So I'm sitting there playing poker, and out of the side of my eye, I see a white boy swing on the older dude. He's a little bit older, but you know, in there, age, size, none of that shit matters, man. The only thing that matters to us is our integrity and how we conduct ourselves. Because sometimes you got little dudes with little dude complex that are quick to run their mouth and bulk up. And sometimes they get a pass because the dude don't want to beat him up because he's small or whatever. But at the end of the day, it gets to a point where enough is enough. You need to be taught a lesson. So the white boy one of the white boys swings on him, takes off on him. And again, you talk all that shit. You act like you're above the politics, but then when it's time to get it in, you curl up in a ball. He drops, curls up in a ball, just puts his hand over his head to protect himself and pulls his knee in. Like, all that is giving the three guys on top of him free range. And they're just booting him, stomping the shit out of him right there by my poker table. I don't know why they keep wanting to beat up people by my poker table. But, you know, my poker table, and on yard 3, it's a big crowd. We get a lot of crowd because it's commerce. People are coming, conducting business. People are chopping up. People are hanging out. So maybe they're thinking they can blend in with the crowd or whatever. But it doesn't happen, because when shit like that happen, the crowd disperse. And it's just them 3 stomping out this dude. And they're stomping the shit out of him. They got their boots on. They're kicking him on the side of the head, stomping on the back of his head, kicking him in the ribs. And they were fucking him up. But at the same time, where I was at in the penitentiary, he got off lightly. Because before, usually, when it's time to X somebody out, when it's time to remove somebody off the yard, they're bringing that knife to you and they're stabbing you. But in the last 10 years in the feds, they've been charging people, putting cases on people. So now instead of stabbing these dudes when it's not that serious, because the crime that he committed by not respecting the politic wasn't something that he should have lost his life over. But at the same time, once country told him that, and he continued to do it, he can't be given a pass. No matter how much someone likes him or how cool he was, he can't be given a pass, because if he's given a pass, then the next individual is going to do the same thing, and there's no rules or laws or politics to respect. You can't have rules, you can't have laws if you are not willing to enforce it. And they stomped him out. Why? Because they told him, you can't go work over there for the guards to build a freaking wall and red cages that's going to be placed to put us in there. And he refused to listen. And he got his ass stomped out. Got fucked up. They were stomping and kicking his face for like 3 or 4 minutes. Now, 3 or 4 minutes might not seem a long time to anybody out here, but if your ass getting beat up for 2, 3 minutes, I promise you, it's gonna feel like a lifetime. Again, the only people that was working in that place, that was putting up the wall and helping the guards put up the red cages, was the Muslims. And when I say that, I mean the Crips didn't allow their homies to do it. The Midwest didn't allow their homies to do it. None of the GDs. Nobody else in Atwater allowed any of their homies to go over there and work, except for the Muslims. Because us in the penitentiary, no matter how you feel about why we're there or what led us there or who we are and the things that we've done, we, I believe, conduct ourselves and hold ourselves to a higher standards. We don't violate kids. We don't violate women. We don't tell on people. Welcome to the USP.